had been trying to do it on my own, crash dieting, working out, trying just different diets here and there, and just nothing seemed to be working for me. I didn't know how much I didn't know.
When you think about a change, what starts the change is you identifying that there's a problem and you being motivated to fix that problem.
I did not realize how much inner work needed to be done in order for my outside to be changed. I don't need to wait until I get down to my desired weight goal.
Pleasure keeps you going when discipline fails.
I was a broken human being, but now I can say today, I just look at it so much differently because I was choosing to do what I wanted to do that's going to feed my destined self.
It's about you and me. Let's come together, positivity. Health is wealth, gotta take care of myself. Cause ain't nobody gonna make the change.
Welcome back to your Wellness Sources. Today we're diving into a topic that so many people struggle with, weight loss, but from a completely different lens. We'll be talking about the psychology of change, identity, and healing your relationship with food. I'm here with Dr. George and our amazing guest, Faith, who's been on a personal transformation journey that goes far beyond the number on the scale. Faith, thank you so much for being here. I'm so excited for you to share your story.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for being here with us.
So Faith, can you share a bit about where your journey began, what brought you to start working on your health in the first place?
Yes, I would say that I had started kind of hitting a wall with what I thought I needed to do to get in a healthier space, and just from lack of knowledge and everything. So I started to pursue outside help. I have been overweight for most of my life. And so I always knew that I wanted to get healthier. You know, I know as you get older, you want to be as healthy as you can. So I decided to kind of go on that health journey and started hitting the wall. So yeah, I really had to press in.
Yeah, well, we're so glad you have joined your Wellness Sources and we've gotten to work with you. I know we've been working together for a very long time, pretty intimately. What do you think was a turning point for you? Like, why? Obviously, you want to get healthier, but what kind of really was that point that provoked the aha moment of like, okay, let me seek out that help?
I had been trying to do it on my own. I was trying so many different things like crash dieting, working out on my own, trying just different diets here and there, and just nothing seemed to be working for me. So I was like, I need some help to figure out what works for me. What is maybe my body just needs some type of special attention, or whatever it is. Like maybe something is wrong with me. Like so many things were going through my mind, but when I had kind of come to the end of everything that I understood about weight loss and everything, I was like, you know what? Let me get some help because this isn't working.
It's hard. It's hard to, one, ask for help. And it's also hard to identify that maybe you've exhausted the resources that you know and have power. So it's just interesting, though, that you mentioned the crash diets, because that's something so many of my patients come to me with is like trying all these different things. And sometimes it's like the saying, oh, I've tried everything, nothing's worked. And, obviously that's not true in your case and our journey together, but it's a very important part of someone's story is feeling like they've exhausted all these resources and feeling like maybe there isn't enough information out there on what weight loss really means.
Absolutely. I didn't know how much I didn't know. That was a big thing for me, not knowing how much I didn't know. I had experienced losing weight in the past with other, people, and that was great. But when it came to doing it on my own, I just was at such a loss,
Where did your story begin with your Wellness Sources? I mean, I know when we got together, but Dr. George, do you want to speak up? Like, when did you guys first kind of connect and what, was the initiator of this path?
Faith, I think you saw another provider first when you came in, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes. Yes,
Tell us, how did you hear about YWS, your Wellness Sources?
I got a referral. I was really blessed through my insurance to get a referral. I just say all the time, God does things well because he'll point you in the right direction. So I just felt like I was pointed in the right direction to go to your Wellness Sources because I've learned just so much just in seeking out, through my primary care doctor, like, hey, I need some more assistance. She was like, it's time to go to a nutritionist, reach out and get deeper into some things that you can do to help your journey.
And I'll be honest with you, overall, primary care providers don't really know about nutrition. We often would tell the patient, eat healthy, try to eat less carbs, try to exercise, eat lots of fruits and vegetables. But we don't know specifically how to give them the blueprint. We don't know that information. So it's a lovely thing when a provider could identify, hey, this is outside of my lane. Let me send my patient to somebody who know what they are talking about. In your journey, listening to your journey, when we think about elementary, high school, and all of those years, we never really was taught how to eat healthy. We learned the food groups. We know what is fruits, what is legumes, what is grains, what is starch, but we never really were told how to eat healthy. And everybody has a different version of healthy. So it's really nice to be able to walk us through your journey and the different changes, because when you think about a change, what starts the change is you identifying that there's a problem and you being motivated to fix that problem. And the third part is brain power, because your mind controls everything. So I will lead back to Miss Mirsky, and she's going to ask you some more questions, because change is not just about, I want to lose weight, I want to be healthy. It's more than that. And you got to get your mind ready. You like to have to condition your mind in order to make that change.
First off, I just have to give, you your flowers, Faith, because whoever picked your name, they picked it perfectly. Like I've never had such a patient that is just like so trusting of the whole process, like your attitude and everything along the way. And that's really why I wanted to have you here is I just think that your energy is so powerful and beautiful that it's like it's contagious, and to witness you on your journey has been a blessing. So I'm just so grateful to have other people also witness that.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you. I brag about you all the time. My friends know you by name at this point.
I think the most important thing is when someone listens to you and they understands your journey and they take the time to get to know you. I tell everybody you are unique. When you think of nutritional coaching and support, it's not one size fits all. All of us have different bodies, we have different cultures, we have different norms, and we have to find the best fit for you. So it's really nice to have that good therapeutic relationship with Miss Tilly, that you feel supported, or you can tell her anything, even though you think it might be a dumb question, or you might think it's just, you can just throw it out there. Well, I heard this, or I read this on YouTube, I saw this. What do you think about this? It's really nice to have a provider that you can trust, someone you can therapeutically engage with.
And that's a perfect segue into kind of the meat of this is like the psychology around behavior change. I think when people consider whether or not to do the nutrition consultations, their first thought is, oh, they're just going to give me a list of foods I shouldn't eat. But the beauty of the consultation is we're actually really just talking about the story. What barriers do you have? How is your brain and mindset maybe, hindering you and this path? So much more of our work is actually getting down into the nitty gritty and how to create sustainable behavior change. And a lot of the frustration there can sometimes be that you don't initially lose weight. You're going to come in and it can feel like we're spending weeks and weeks and weeks and there's not progress. But this is often because you have to really retrain the brain. It's called neuroplasticity. We have to create these new pathways so that you're no longer constantly getting in your own way. There's no all or nothing mindset or feeling like you constantly need to start over or having the inability to trust in the process. So, a lot of that work is mental. And then once you overcome so much of that mental, then we're able to talk about the actual dietary inputs. And it's kind of perfect because Faith, we just made that switch to the dietary changes. We've been working for months on the mental, and you have been so patient and trusting, and I know you found it transformative. So I just would love for people to hear more about what you think about, with the behavior change. Like, what are some of the mental and emotional barriers that maybe kept you stuck?
Yes, absolutely. I did not realize how much inner work needed to be done in order for my outside to be changed, because of how far back eating and how to care for my body, it goes all the way back to my childhood and the way that I view like my family members. A lot of us were overweight. A lot of us were sickly and had these issues, but nobody really knew how to care for their bodies and take care of themselves. And so there was this thing inside me that didn't want to become like that, but also didn't know how to avoid it. And so there was this constant like I was just going around and around in circles trying to figure out, how to avoid this, and then ended up going right into that space completely because I had no idea. It was so much, but I will say that one of the things that hit me hard was learning that I don't need to wait until I get there, whatever that there is, right? I don't need to wait until I get there to manifest the values that I have, that I want to see myself be at whatever weight I am. I need to, if I want to be someone that hikes or someone that does more physical activities, I don't need to wait until I get down to my desired weight goal. And it's funny, it's like, yeah, but really like, you don't have to wait. Like it was that giving myself permission to live that out. And that alone already makes you more active, makes you more do things that will help increase the results that you want to see. So I think it was almost the giving myself permission to be who I want to be. I didn't realize that I wasn't doing that in limiting the way that I looked at this as a journey. This is something I have to do for the rest of my life. It can't just be a crash diet here, going to the gym 7 days a week until I pass out. That just is not going to work. So I think that was one of the major things that hit me. And, and on top of eating was a barrier too, because I didn't just eat to fuel my body or enjoying a moment. It was just impulse. I didn't realize, wow, we just popping food and I'm in my mouth out of nowhere. These are just some of the things, and low self-esteem and all those things. If you don't deal with that, it can affect your progress, because especially if you're in a slow and steady pace like this, you don't want to beat up on yourself if you're not meeting this thing in your mind.
Self-love is a very important thing. Knowing who you are and loving the skin that you're in. Too often we look at magazines and we look at the models and we all want to be looking like them, but we need to know that we are beautiful. We are created in the image of God, and we we deserve to be loved, and we deserve to love ourselves. And I think once we get to that balance, in that I deserve love, I am lovable, and I can give love back, you look at the world through different lenses.
Mm-hmm.
Because if somebody's mean to you, if somebody bullies you, if somebody throw a smart remark to you, you learn to, I love me. You doesn't change who I am. Doesn't matter what you say about me. I know I'm all that in a bag of chips, if you know what I mean. I always say that. I tell my patients that. There's one artist, her name is Monique from Baltimore. And I remember Monique years ago in the comedy clubs. She was at her heaviest weight. And one of the things I remember about Monique is, well, there goes a full-figured woman who loves herself, and she's all that in a bag of chips. You never saw that person who felt shy or felt unaccepted. You saw somebody who was bold and brave and not ashamed to call out herself, not ashamed to wear fancy, sexy outfits with the shoulders showing and the back showing. I admire her for that. And that's what is loving yourself and knowing who you are. Because sometimes people grow up in this world and become adults and they don't know who they are because they're always striving to be the next person. So that's step one. loving yourself, knowing who you are.
I want to almost break it down even more because it's like that is the most important thing. And the visual you just laid out is glorious. And I want that for everyone. Where I see the confusion and sometimes the struggle is one, like, how do we love ourselves when we're so used to a pattern of not loving ourselves? Like, how do we change that? And then two, how do we balance or really juggle the sensation of I want to love myself as I am, and I want to acknowledge that it's okay if I want to work on things. And that can be very hard for people because it almost feels like, am I betraying myself and betraying my self love by saying I want to change? So that's kind of the balance there. I don't know if you remember, Faith, but I gave you a visualization tool way back when, and it was about you essentially sitting and creating a list, but first envisioning the version of yourself that lost the weight.
Yes, yes.
So I'll give everyone else a little bit of an idea on what it was, but essentially, you sit there and you envision yourself when you have access to certain goal. It could be the weight loss, it could be making a certain amount of money, it could be finding the love of your life, like any big goal that are very common, and we'll do weight loss for this one. But essentially there's a version of you that you picture as like your happiest, healthiest self, where you are in a body that you feel like, yes, that is what I really want to be in, what I want to embody. Not comparing yourself to the magazines, not setting an unrealistic goal, but the version of you that you feel like is the destined version, not the dream version, the destined version. In that destined version of you, it's good to start thinking about, like, what does that really mean? Because too many people fixate on a number. And I say, if you're focusing on loss, all you're going to do is lose. So what are you gaining? Okay. What is your life like? If you want to be the person that intuitively knows how to eat and enjoys food and is able to comprise a beautiful, healthy meal and enjoys cooking, you're probably not going to get there by doing fad diets that are very restrictive and not enjoying your food. So it's also understanding, how do we get there? You also might want to be someone who's not constantly obsessing over weighing yourself. So that might not be how you get there. You might be the version of yourself who wants to just like go out and be leisurely and go for walks and spend more free time. So essentially, we're creating a version of you that is a beautiful reality that you want to embark in and have a day in the life of, that is just like this beautiful day of your life. It's not just what you're seeing in the mirror, it's how you're feeling, how you're moving, what you're doing, how you're engaging. Like, are you someone who's super critical when you've reached that version? Are you someone who sees the world with love? So, how do we bring that to the now? Because we need that pathway to reflect the end result. When you are creating that list of how you want to be and how you want to maneuver as that ultimate version of yourself, I guarantee there are things you can start integrating right now. For example, you can start integrating right now. I want to be the person that cooks my own meals and enjoys it. Okay, maybe you're not there yet, but maybe you could start taking some cooking classes. Like, do it with a gal pal, like go out there, just like challenge yourself to start enjoying, learning, and having fun with something so that you can step into that version of yourself and it's natural, effortless, and comfortable.
There is so many things I thought of that would help be successful. When you think about the version of you that is your destined version, if you have to get to that version of yourself, give me three top things, foundational, I would say, principles that you live by in order to achieve that goal, Faith.
Three principles that I live by. One of them is now just being strong in who I am despite the outside voices. And this means that I start to confront the inner voices that I have on the inside that makes me doubt myself, because of experiencing so many outside voices speaking on my body and speaking, negative things on my body. So it is really going in and making sure that I strengthen my inner voice and what I say about myself and what I believe about myself. Because if I believe negatively, essentially I'm going to draw that negativity towards me. So I want to believe better about myself and better will come. That really helps. And, you know, Miss Tilly, we talked a lot about mindfulness and just being mindful of my movement. You know, it's made me move differently because a lot of the struggle that I've had is moving impulsively and doing things impulsively. But now moving mindfully and being intentional about, you know, what I'm eating, what I'm doing, what my day is going to look like, it really, really does help to make sure that I'm heading towards that destined person. And also flexibility in how I enact everything that I need to do in order to change. Because one of the things that I struggled with was like really having a hard time sticking to whatever plan that I was on when times change and schedule changes and things change. But it's learning how to be flexible and adaptive in those moments. I feel like adaptability is so huge. You know what I'm saying? Adaptability, like I think we underrate how needed it is because, you know, as much as, you know, some of us have like certain particular schedules, you know, some of us, like, things change on the fly.
Yeah, there's a level of discipline and commitment. There's a level of denying your wants to your needs. Sometimes self-talking, telling yourself, no, Faith, I do not need this right now. You know? So sometimes you have to tell yourself, self, I'm not going to eat that right now. Those are three very important foundational principles to guide you, and they are wonderful principles because you can really be practical about it. Let's say you're following a regimen, you're eating a certain way, and then you have to travel out of state for work for a few days. What tends to happen typically is once you fly out for those 2 days and you come back, a lot of times people have difficulty getting back into the schedule. So this is where that piece, if you have to be flexible, once you get back on that regular schedule, you want to come back to the plan, the original commitment that you have. And that's where you check yourself, you know?
I couldn't agree more. I do like to refrain from always using the words discipline, though. I do like commitment. I think commitment to self. You know, we have a lot of veterans, active military. They love discipline. You know, those words are really great
Yes,
for
they love.
them. That's just like a preference in language. Whereas my women, we're on a monthly cycle. It is so uncomfortable sometimes to focus on discipline and those kind of terminology and being the same every single week when we're different every single week. We have 4 different phases, and it doesn't matter if you've already gone through menopause or not, we're still always connected to those moon phases and those different phases. So what Faith and I have worked on so much, where I feel like this is kind of the shift, because she used to be a little bit more of that discipline mindset, you know, like the rigidity. And the rigidity almost prevents the flexibility because it's like, if I'm not perfect, if I'm not doing this, then I'm not doing it right. And that can send you back to square one. So the flexibility, the mindfulness that you mentioned, both of those are really important, as well as such a key component is pleasure. And it almost feels like the antithesis of discipline.
That was really good. I appreciated that because I didn't even think that could be a part of it. So, yeah.
But pleasure is so important. And most people say, oh, well, discipline keeps you going when motivation fails. But I will say, pleasure keeps you going when discipline fails. Because discipline often gets disrupted by travel or friends visiting or celebration, because there's the mindset, oh, well, I'm disciplined, but like, here's a pause. Life threw me some curveballs. Here's a pause. I'll get back to it. Whereas the pleasure and the intuition keep you centered in those goals. And when I'm speaking about pleasure, I don't mean gluttony, I don't mean overindulgence. Mindfulness is really a key element here, because pleasure, the true meaning of pleasure, is just the combination of gratitude and presence. So think about that. That is just simply being in the moment, being connected to your body, to whatever is going on, and being grateful for it. So, the things that allow you to produce that sensation are what is going to keep you going. So, for example, a lot of people don't love working out in the gym. That's not their forte. They don't want to go hit the weights. But there's an idea, oh, in order to lose weight, I have to get into the gym. What I often encourage people to do is go take a dance class or go pick up a sport. Whatever activity that you thoroughly find pleasure from, you are going to want to keep coming back to and back to and back to because it's fun, it's enjoyable, and you view it as a part of your overall well being, not just a simple tool to get you to from point A to point B.
It's like cooking. A lot of times when people are learning new healthy menus and they're like, oh, I don't feel like cooking, but you find pleasure in it, right? So if you're a herb person, you could say, okay, let me try some parsley, let me try some ginger, let me try some turmeric, and you can kind of play with food. You can kind of go off menu with food and just create your own creation with food. And then the activity becomes pleasurable.
Absolutely. There are steps. You don't always find pleasure initially, but you gotta mix around, you gotta play with it. And that's where the intuition comes into play as well, is like just what you said earlier, Faith, is like, how do I drown out, maybe the voices that aren't mine and connect with what my inner intuition is telling me? I'd love to, kind of talk about, if you don't mind sharing, like, I know you've had experiences of going to family members, and like there's this idea of how we should be eating together and consuming, and that's not always how you want to be actually consuming. So it's like, how do we connect with self versus like following the herd?
I grew up in a land of all you can eat buffets. So so it was often you get your plate, you finish that, then next one, finish that. It's piled up. It's, all of this, even in family gatherings and things of that nature. It was a lot of food related events and not much else, nothing, not much activity or games or anything like that. It was a lot of centered around food. And I think a lot of it had to do with, just a lot of the people in the family that were putting it on, they might have been older. And it was just like, we're going to cook this food and that's it. So that has been what has kind of shaped initially my mind around, what it took to fuel my body or feed my body or bring me pleasure. It was that satisfaction of that food. And it also, for me, at the time meant fellowship because, again, this is how we got together. This is how we congregated with each other. And so I could recall a time where I was really actively working out and things like that. And it kind of reshaped for me the feeling of knowing that I could still have fellowship, even though I'm doing something differently and trying to do things that help fuel where I'm trying to go. And, I had community around me at that time and developing community that was outside of just eating. And those two things they often battle. And that's where I have to give myself grace because I'm 35 years old and a lot of the stuff that I'm learning is like within the past year, how to fuel my body, like even down to Miss Tilly was talking about, she was like, okay, what I want you to try is to eat 70% of your plate and then stop. It's in my brain burrowed in there that I need to eat the whole plate. Like we need to finish. There's kids starving in third world countries. Like, come on, I can't leave anything on the plate. But I'm telling you, the first time I did it, it took like 10 minutes. And then I started to feel full because what I would do is just eat until I felt that sense of fullness, right? But that's how you end up overeating a lot. But I ate it and I was like 10 minutes later, I felt full. And then the more I did it, the quicker I started feeling fuller and fuller. And I was like, oh my gosh, I did not even know that I could get full off of less because I wasn't even giving myself the opportunity because I had gotten so used to what my mind had been programmed to do from childhood. So like really, really being in tune and aware really helps. has really helped me to see the difference. I'm like, wow, I'm aware of what I did when I was younger. And now, seeing that, whoa, there's another way. And I need to implement those things, that there's another way to do this. Like, I still enjoy my food. I still enjoy those moments, but it doesn't need to be in excess.
It's amazing that you said that. And I think it's a cultural thing. Being from the Caribbean, and I've talked to other patients who's from Africa, African Americans, or Latin Americans, it seems to be very disrespectful to leave food on your plate and don't eat it. It's a cultural thing. So you are told, and even when I was a little girl, I was told by my mom, my parents, that you don't waste food. You have to eat everything on your plate. And you're like, Mom, I don't want it. I'm full. You got to eat it. Children in Africa is starving. That's what they will say. So you're right, Faith. That's what they'll say. That was one of the negative practices that seems to be a common denominator with a lot of patients who struggle with obesity, to be the reason for them overeating as an adult. So that is the one practice that I do think that parents need to take tune of it, because it has been such a strong indicator for obesity as an adult.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I would say it's a practice amongst like pretty much every culture. I see it. I see it with everyone, and it very much is this consciousness of food waste. The recommendations I give people around that are a couple of things. One, when you have hit your threshold of food, like you are full, any more food would make you uncomfortable. It is as much a waste in your body as it is in the trash can.
Yes.
And just think about that. You are deciding that food is okay to go into your body, but it's still excess. And that plays into a larger issue, which is, why are we taking so much excess? Not just consuming excess, but making excess and putting that much excess on our plate. Because if you really think about it, if you really care about those who are starving and those who need more, it's not by consuming more, it's by giving out more and consuming less. So that is one key aspect. And then the other is, when it comes to food waste, because I also really don't like food waste. One, composting, letting it go back into the earth and creating nourishment is an amazing tool. Also, leftovers. I tell people all the time, like, even save your last 2 bites. It may seem small and nothing, but when I tell you, those last 2 bites, if you put them in your eggs the next morning, that's flavor. Like, it's so delicious. So those last 2 bites mean something, and it's better than consuming it if it's going to put you over the edge. One of the little pieces of advice I also give, it's a little naughty, but like, essentially, eat to feel sexy. And what I mean by that is, if you finish a meal and you're like, I want to put on a baggy t-shirt, I want to like put my arms over myself, I want to lay down, like, that's an uncomfortable feeling. And that's a huge indicator that it was too much. Not too much that it's going to make you gain weight, but just too much to make you feel good. Whereas the idea of like, okay, eating to feel sexy, like, can you keep the pants still belted? Do you want to get up and maybe go dancing? Are you feeling good in your body? Like, if you wore that tight dress out, can you still remain in it without feeling the need to cover yourself up? So it's a really good way for people who haven't like quite tapped into hunger cues, because we talk about that a lot, hunger cues, understanding satiation. But if you haven't quite been able to articulate that or understand its parameters, that's my advice, is like, eat to feel sexy. Like, how do you get up after and still want to go out dancing?
But I wanted to touch on one thing, Faith. You mentioned a lot of negative comments. I'm going to push it right back at them, because people who want to identify the flaws in other people is people who are quite insecure themselves. That a lot to do with it. If somebody want to body shame you or say negative things about you, it's because of their own insecurities, and they're trying to project it onto you. So sometimes, as a strategy in mindfulness, is for you to be aware of that. So when people give you the negative thing, you're like, oh, she's insecure. And you keep it moving. So sometimes if you're mindful about those things, just get under your skin the way how it have gotten under your skin in the past?
Well, just to start wrapping up, essentially, what would be some advice you'd have to others, Faith, if they're starting their weight loss journey and need kind of a boast of confidence that it can take time and essentially going back through those old conditioning patterns.
Yeah,
It's okay. It's okay to spend that time.
absolutely. I just encourage everybody to do the work in finding out the things that influence the way that you look at yourself, the way that you look at food, the way that you look at activity. Start to examine those things and like don't be afraid to take the time to do that because you're going to see longevity. You're going to see a lot of liberation when you find out what has influenced the way that you think and why you do what you do. And you're going to feel empowered to move on to something, better. And it strengthens you and helps you to be able to, like I said, that adaptability, when you know why you're doing what you're doing and what you're doing it for, it helps you to be able to adapt in those situations that you might get in a compromising situation, but you'll know like, hey, I'm not doing this to have this fellowship. I'm not doing this out of impulsivity. I'm doing this for my destined self. So I just would encourage you and to take that time. Like it takes time to undo what's going on up here. But once you undo that and you start to see a new perspective, it's really going to help you. Like it really is.
So I'm going to ask you something, Faith. If you think about your old self, pre-Miss Tilly, and you think about the new person you are, can you give me an example where you were in a situation and you were proud of yourself for how you handled it because of the changes you have undergone in terms of mindfulness, loving yourself, and going and putting in the work?
Absolutely. I remember prior to Miss Tilly, I just felt broken. Like I was a broken human being. Like something was wrong with me, and is something is wrong with why I struggle so much to get to this goal weight. But now I can say today I just look at it so much differently, and I've had moments where like my husband, he's my biggest supporter, and he'd be the one to get me in trouble sometimes too. But I remember even recently, like he brought some Krispy Kreme donuts to the house. Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
Oh
Exactly.
no.
Yes. He set me up. He set me up. But I saw them and I was like, I don't have to have that. And it was because I was choosing to do what I wanted to do that's going to feed my destined self, and it wasn't an act of impulsivity or even sometimes I just eat because other people are eating. I've had that too. But it was like, no, I don't have to do that. I'm glad you enjoyed it, but I'm good. You know what I'm saying? And that doesn't alienate me. That doesn't stop me from having that connection with people, but it helps me to move forward into where I desire to be. So
Were you proud of yourself for that
yes,
self-control?
yes, and we just want to keep that up.
Yeah. Being able to set boundaries,
Absolutely,
learning to say
absolutely.
no, and it's
Mm-hmm.
okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's okay to say no.
It's okay
It's
to say
okay.
no.
Yes.
So impressive. And I think it just shows that success is so incredibly potent, not just with finding something, a change on the scale, but just by overcoming the conditioning, by overcoming the patterns that kind of prevented you from feeling, whether you want to say in control or just empowered, free, liberated, as you said. So, just a reminder to everyone out there that success can be measured in so many ways. And it's not just in your labs, it's not just on the scale, it's not just what you see in the mirror. It's very much how you are able to maneuver and how you are able to feel proud of the small little moments, because those small little moments, they build up.
So this is very important. At like at your wellness sources is very important for us to take a holistic approach with weight management. I tell patients, don't focus on the weight loss, focus on being well,
Mhm.
wellness, right?
Yes.
Because initially we start with the customized labs that we do because we want to identify, are there any deficiencies? Do you have vitamin D? Do you have vitamin B12 deficiency? Is the kidneys working well? What's your cholesterol look like? Are you pre-diabetic or diabetic? All those things are very important. It's like a car. A car needs a timing belt. It needs the gears. It needs the engine. It needs the oil to run on it. If any one of those things missing, the car is not going to move. So people say, well, I'm doing everything. I'm exercising. I'm eating well, but I'm not losing weight. What are you deficient in? So we have to look at ourselves holistically. And the other part is mine. What is my mental health like? Because anxiety, depression would sabotage any efforts any day. So understanding that and have a holistic approach, making sure you identify what is your self-sabotaging behaviors, learn the tools to overcome that, and have that coaching, that mentoring, like you're meeting with your nutritionist, if you have a behavioral therapist, you get that coaching along the way because we are human beings. And if we did something for 30 years and now we want to make a change, we're going to fall short every now and then. But the beauty is when we can get back up and stand up again and keep it moving, right? And sometimes we need that encouragement. So I always recommend for patients, when you start on this weight loss journey or wellness journey, try to make sure you meet with your nutritionist and your behavioral health therapist, if indicated, closer in succession. If you meet with them initially, weekly, every 2 weeks, every 3 weeks, so that they can coach you through the things until you get to the point where it becomes habit. The changes that you make is more consistent. And then you can space those visits out because you need that support and to understand, because sometimes they see things objectively in you that you did not know about yourself. And that is where that strength comes from, by identifying these new things about yourself, using those things as tools to help you overcome sabotaging behaviors.
Absolutely. It's such a complex journey. It's not just calories in, calories out. There's so much more to it. And yeah, I think this is us just getting started talking about weight loss on the podcast, but I think this was such a beautiful start to understand, the mind is first and have a ton of resources, like seek out support. So it was wonderful having you, Faith. Thank you so much for sharing a bit about your story and just inspiring us all.
Thank you. Thank you for
This was
having me.
wonderful. I remember you said flexibility, mindfulness, and what was the third one, Faith?
Oh, the adaptability.
Adaptability, flexibility, and mindfulness. So everyone out there listening to us at Health Talks by YWS, please understand the importance of having that journey, understanding how you must be adaptable, you must be flexible, must be mindful of the things that you're doing and why you're doing it. Your destined you. What is your destined goals? Not about what somebody else wants for you, is what your destined goals are. Thank you so much, Miss Faith, for being with us. It's a pleasure. And thank you guys for tuning in to Health Talks by YWS. We'll see you soon.
Come on, work it out. What? Come on, work it out. Come on and work it out. See, health is wealth. Come on and work it out. You at the gym right now. Come on and work it out. See, health is wealth. Come on and work it out. Yeah. Come on. It's about you and me. Let's come together. Positivity. It's about me. Health is wealth. Gotta take care of myself. 'Cause ain't nobody gonna make the change but me. So let me put in the work and be the best version of me.